Well, for the first time in many weeks, Dolton trustees and Mayor Tiffany Henyard held a public meeting together, but not at Village Hall.
And Micah, tonight was a special board meeting because business has not gotten done at 2 previous meetings. So that's some progress there. But this meeting was not without its fair share of.
Tonight was a special board meeting because business has not been completed at 2 previous meetings. So there was some progress there, but there was also some tension. This was the first public meeting between Dolton trustees and Mayor Tiffany Henyard in many weeks. The incidents involving Dolton, Illinois Tiffany Henyard continues to escalate, and to put it simply, it's like watching a live reality TV program. Imagine a mayor earning well over $300,000 annually who is in danger of being evicted for failing to pay her rent. How does it even make sense? And it doesn't end there. Be prepared to dive into the strange and contentious world of Tiffany Henyard, a Dolton home that she leased to Mayor, as her antics have not only affected her personal life, but have also influenced her political choices, creating ongoing chaos in the village she is supposed to be leading. It's as if she is playing her own version of a game where the rules don't apply to her. According to Tiffany Henyard's eviction papers, Henyard has not paid her rent, thus she wants to get rid of him. Let's begin with the drama around the eviction. This is where it gets very juicy.
Dolton home that she leased to Mayor Tiffany Henyard has filed eviction papers. She says Henyard has not paid her rent, and now she wants.
Henyard is the mayor of Dolton and the supervisor of Thoron Township. So imagine being a landlord expecting to get paid on time only to discover that your tenant is not just anyone but the mayor of your town and that she hasn't paid in months. This is exactly what happened to Henyard's landlord. Fast forward to the present, and Hull is owed thousands in back rent. According to Hull, the last payment she received was in August, and after that, the rent check simply stopped coming in. You would think someone earning that much money would have no trouble paying rent, but apparently Henyard's priorities lie elsewhere. PO was forced to file for eviction in September and has been working to serve them ever since. However, Henyard has been evading service as if it were her full-time job. The Cook County Sheriff has attempted to serve the papers several times, but Henyard and her boyfriend always seem to disappear into thin air. Hull even had to hire a special process server to add more fees on top of the unpaid rent. The situation is a mess, and now she is hinting at a big announcement that she says will lead to the arrest and charging of some of her opponents. H says she hasn't been able to gain access to the home for months. She gave Henyard and her boyfriend 48 hours notice to come and do some maintenance, but when she arrived, she found the locks had been changed.
She's teasing a big announcement that she claims will result in some of her opponents being arrested and charged.
And the garage code had been altered. Can you believe that? It's like they're treating the place like their own personal fortress, locking the actual owner out. Paul is understandably frustrated, and to add insult to injury, she says she once considered Henyard a friend. She even did campaign work for her. Now Hull just wants them out of her house. Henyard landlord showed up here to see her tenant in person after she says Henyard has been dodging both her and rent payments for months. Let's pause here for a second. How does someone in a position of power, making more money than most people in her town, end up in a situation like this? It's not like we're talking about an exorbitant amount of rent. Hull said the rent was raised by $200 over the summer, bringing the total to $2,400 a month for someone making over $300,000 a year. That should be pocket change, but instead Henyard boyfriend supposedly said they couldn't afford it. Really bad reactions to this whole situation have been pouring in, and let us tell you, people are not holding back. One commenter asked, how many more months does this continue? Does no one face consequences anymore? It's a valid question. It's frustrating to see another fan point out that Henyard appears to be slipping by with no real accountability. She owns a rental property that is condemned and was overpaid by Section 8 because the renter was staying in a hotel while Tiff was still receiving the rent, and then she turns around and rents a house. There isn't a single choice she makes that is bad, but really, where's the lie?
Henyard's landlord showed up here to see her tenant in person after she says Henyard has been dodging both her and rent payments for months.
One aspect of the broader picture of the dubious her actions almost seem to mirror her political life, which is also spiraling out of control. Speaking of her political life, let's talk about the drama surrounding the police chief. If you thought the rent situation was messy, wait until you hear about this. Henyard has been trying to replace her previous choice as police chief for Dolton. You would think that after Chief Lewis Lacey was effectively fired by a vote of no confidence from the officers, she would have learned from the mistake and made a more cautious decision going forward. But instead, she picked Ronald Burstar as the next police chief. Burge isn't even qualified to be an officer, let alone the head of the department. The Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board informed Henyard in a letter that Burge's law enforcement certification is inactive because he hasn't completed the necessary requalification shoots since 2021 and Dolton hasn't filed the necessary paperwork to have him reinstated. In other words, Burge isn't currently able to lawfully carry a firearm or exercise any law enforcement authority, but that didn't stop
Are a clown. We will continue to speak out against wrongdoing.
Why won't you step down?
Henyard from appointing him anyhow. The board urged Henyard to remove Burge from public service until they could decide whether he's eligible for reactivation, but instead of listening to the experts, after a tumultuous village board meeting, Henyard doubled down when a judge decided in her favor, allowing Burge to act as interim police chief for 30 days while they work things out. Yes, you read correctly. Despite all the warning signs, Burge remains in control, at least for the time being. Township tonight as another board meeting got canceled because of a lack of a quorum, and that came after a disagreement about where to hold the meeting as trustees expressed concerns for their safety. This brings us to another fan comment. There isn't one decision she makes that is sound. It's becoming increasingly clear that Henyard isn't exactly known for making well-thought-out choices, whether it's her personal finances or her political appointments. There's a pattern of recklessness that's hard to ignore, and the people of Dolton are paying the price for it both literally and figuratively. Let's not forget Hines' appointment of Burge wasn't just a controversial decision, it was also illegal. The Dolton trustees have been fighting her on this, saying that she doesn't have the authority to make these appointments without their consent. But Henyard, she's not one to back down even when faced with legal challenges. She just keeps pushing forward as if the rules don't apply to her. It's like she's on a power trip, and the people of Dolton are caught in the crossfire. You are a clown. We will continue to speak out against wrongdoing. Why won't you step down? Even more concerning is Henyard's past in law enforcement. Recall Chief Lacey, who was another catastrophe. With Burge in the hot seat, it feels like history is repeating itself. Lacey, who was hired by Henyard, had his own share of scandals, including charges of bankruptcy fraud and claims of lack of professionalism. Henyard appears to have a talent for associating with persons that are either unfit or in legal issues. She seems to be playing a game of political musical chairs, and each time the winner is someone who shouldn't be in charge. The police department isn't the only organization suffering under Henyard's leadership. Dolton is having trouble as a whole. With a multi-million-dollar deficit and growing debt, the village's finances are in ruins, and its citizens are understandably angry as they watch their town go further into financial ruin while their mayor is away having shady parties and making dubious choices. I'm over it now, and it's time for me. One neighbor even likened her to a dictator, stating that it's like living in Venezuela under NC.
Let's point the finger to Tiffany or allow me. I'm over it. Now it's time for me.
Become a tale of political scandal, power plays, and questionable priorities. For months, Henyard has faced growing criticism for her leadership style, which many claim revolves around self-interest rather than the needs of her community. While her tenure has been marked by a series of scandals, from wasteful spending to dubious political maneuvers, the most glaring issue is the overwhelming sense that Henyard is using her position not to serve the people of Dolton, but to elevate. Of the most striking accusations against Henyard is the more theatrical aspects of her behavior. Henyard has repeatedly made bold promises to expose her political rivals, claiming that they are the true culprits behind Dolton's problems. In a 90-minute Facebook Live broadcast, she suggested that she might even pursue criminal charges against some of her opponents. However, despite these inflammatory accusations, Henyard has failed to provide any concrete evidence to back up her claims. Instead, she relies on vague insinuations and the promise of future revelations, creating an atmosphere of tension and distrust without offering any substantial proof. What's particularly concerning is the way Henyard has seemingly sought to deflect attention away from her own growing list of controversies by shifting the narrative. By framing herself as the victim of a vast conspiracy, she has sought to portray her rivals as power-hungry villains rather than acknowledge her own shortcomings. Her accusations of a power and money grab among her opponents seem more like a diversionary tactic than a genuine effort to root out corruption. Critics argue that Henyard is using these tactics to escape scrutiny, all while her own actions, many of which are rooted in self-interest,
I have to pay a special process server in order to get them served, which is more fees.
continue to go unaddressed. In an effort to maintain her grip on power, Henyard has turned to a variety of media strategies. She has gone on rapid media tours, pitched podcast appearances, and even hired public relations firms to help shape her image. While some might argue that this is just an attempt to manage her public perception, others believe it's a calculated attempt to manipulate the media narrative in her favor. Throughout all of this, Henyard continues to insist that she is the victim of unfair treatment, even as the list of scandals surrounding her grows longer. One of the most troubling aspects of Henyard's reign is the way she has used her office to bolster her own image at the expense of the village's residents. From posting self-congratulatory photos of herself at public events to filming music videos for personal projects, Henyard seems more focused on cultivating her celebrity status than on addressing the pressing issues facing Dolton. At one point, she even attended a Valentine's Day dinner surrounded by an entourage of police officers, further blurring the lines between her personal life and her political duties. The optics of such behavior, especially in a town where many residents are struggling with economic hardship, do not sit well with the public. Despite her mounting scandals, Henyard has managed to cling to power. For some, this is a testament to her political savvy, for others of Dolton's government. But whatever the case may be, the reality is that her leadership has left the village mired in debt and plagued by controversy. While Henyard may continue to enjoy her perks of office, many residents are wondering how long this pattern of self-serving behavior can continue before it starts to have more serious consequences. As if the financial mismanagement and ethical lapses weren't enough, Henyard's administration has also been accused of making illegal appointments and failing to act on critical issues like unpaid rent and overdue bills. There are also allegations of widespread cronyism, with some claiming that Henyard has used her position to reward loyal supporters with lucrative contracts and positions. All of this points to a pattern of governance that seems more interested in maintaining power than in addressing the needs of the community. For the residents of Dolton, the situation is dire. As Henyard continues to focus on her own image and political survival, the town is left to bear the brunt of her mismanagement. People like the person writing
Here because I'm at wit's end and I fear that I'm going to go into foreclosure soon if I can't get this matter.
this account are feeling the financial strain, with concerns about foreclosure and mounting fees because of Henyard's actions. The fear is that, as long as she remains in power, there will be no meaningful resolution to these problems. Ultimately, Henyard's tenure raises troubling questions about leadership, accountability, and the role of public officials in serving their communities. How much longer can she hold on to power with so many scandals hanging over her head? It's hard to say, but one thing is certain: unless something changes, Dolton may continue down this path of dysfunction and division for some time to come.